Hello, senoritas, and welcome back to the show. It's Therapy Eve. Happy Therapy Eve, everybody. I hope you're all having a great day, and maybe some of you are celebrating your own Therapy Eves. Who knows? Last two episodes kind of been bags of shit, eh? I think we all kind of noticed. You boys been in a bit of a funk. Turns out re-engaging with April maybe was not the best idea I've ever had. And shock horror kind of sent me down a sadness hole. So that is kind of dealt with now, as we discussed yesterday. So we're on the upswing here. Today kind of fucking sucked, honestly. But yeah, I was just kind of in a fucking mood today. And honestly, thank goodness I was working alone, because I would have fucking taken strips off somebody if they'd been there to piss me off. So you boys on the rebound. We're feeling good tonight, actually, after doing the homework and a few other things. I don't want to jinx anything. So, yeah, it's Therapy Eve. Y'all know what that means. It's time to dig into the most personal, private thoughts I've ever had about the most painful, damaged parts of myself. So, aren't y'all lucky that I recorded and put it on the fucking internet? Just a heads up, this episode is rated A for April. There is a little bit of that in there, so not much. I don't think we'll touch too much on it beyond what I wrote here. And fair dinkum warning here. Still stuffed up, still congested. This cold has returned with a vengeance / micro hangover. I don't know. The Frenchman is convinced that I'm just suffering from 12 micro hangovers at any given time. So who knows? There's some, like I said a few weeks back, there's still some fucking illness tearing through the city. It's just that time of year. It's fall, cold and flu season. Welcome to the fucking party of living in Canada. So, yeah. Admin items. What do we got? Sadness time. So I went to go onto my Disney Plus today to download some stuff to watch on break. And the day has finally come. January has evicted me from Disney Plus and Crave. So we bid a fond farewell to freeloading off of January for Disney Plus and to a lesser extent Crave. I've had to finally pay for my own Disney Plus after like 2 years. So thank you, January, for letting me use your Disney Plus and Crave for as long as you did. I'm actually shocked it took you this long to kick me off of it. And I'm sorry that Netflix auto-booted you and I couldn't do anything about it. But you have been removed from the Prime, unfortunately, an eye for an eye. So, it happened today, and I was just kind of like, fuck. I really thought I could get away with this for fucking longer, and I was wrong. So, you boys paying $12 a month for fucking Disney Plus now, which normally, you know what, honestly, of all of them, the one I would be most likely to cancel is kind of Netflix, because it's just the most useless and their content is kind of just taking a nosedive. But even if I hated every fucking thing on Disney Plus, that's where Doctor Who is going in the new year. So it kind of has to a rock and a hard place, I guess, because you know how much fucking work it is to go find Doctor Who through other means. As well, this episode is being recorded through a new microphone just because I want to see if I can hear the difference between yesterday's and today's, because one of these mics is going to end up being the guest mic. The sister and Kayla have both committed to coming on. No takebacks, girls. So look forward to that. We'll talk about mom trauma, and then Kayla and I will probably talk about church shit. So if some of these episodes that kind of are rated G for God are in there, aren't your jam, well, there's one coming down the pipe that you're gonna fucking absolutely hate. So, what do we got going on for therapy? Sorry, honestly, I'm sick, so be nice to me. Oh, and here's Kayla replying to me right now. Yes. Sorry, dead air. Here we go. We didn't even make it to 5 minutes. Son of a bitch. Is it dead air song time? Song for the listeners. We are talking to Kayla. Fuck. This is the worst. Fucking worst dead air ever. Son of a bitch. I am the worst. I'm so sorry, guys. I can't multitask. On the podcast, type send. Fuck. Okay, there we go. Back in the saddle. And you know what? Old friend, you may be fucking 4 or 5 episodes behind right now. I have faith that you will catch up. And the old friend is very ill right now. She has picked up a super version of whatever bug I have. So spare thought and spare prayer for the old friend who is suffering mightily right now. Yeah, so look forward to a guest. Look forward to hearing about my mom trauma in greater detail because the sister has a much better memory and all that about that whole situation. So, yeah. We're having some, I don't know if I'd say thoughts about May, but we're just kind of waiting and seeing. I'm not going to fly off the handle. I'm not going to go off the deep end. We are just going to kind of let this be and kind of see naturally where it goes on its own. So I'm not too pressed about it, honestly. I was a little bit this morning, but I kind of just realized I had to let it go, and today kind of sucked anyway because I'm still a little bit sour over all that stuff that happened with April yesterday. So we're just kind of playing it by ear. Not a lot of expectations or any of that on her. She is a real mystery to me. So we are just gonna kind of let that happen however it happens, naturally or unnaturally. I don't know. I'm not too pressed about it. But that's enough vamping. Oh, Kayla, I'm trying to record. I am recording right now. Recording right now. Look forward to this dinner. Usually every day or so send. Okay, so let us dig into the therapy homework. So I genuinely don't remember actually why Jilly assigned this to me because all of last session was obviously about April, which we've talked about ad nauseum. So, but this was well timed actually because like we talked about yesterday, like I've kind of fallen back into the old ways a little bit, backslid. Sorry, I had a very interesting dinner tonight and I'm waiting to see if it reacts poorly to each other. Little spicy salami and frozen craft dinner, so don't ask. Bachelor life. Yeah, I had grilled cheese for breakfast at 8 a.m. yesterday, so really, how much farther can we fall, kids? Okay, So yeah, last week's homework was turning anger into motivation, and I feel like I probably said something that made Jilly want me to dig into this, and we are very much realizing that Jill is a much better therapist than she presents herself. No, that's not fair. Jill is a very good therapist, and I knew that. But it turns out Jill is an even better therapist than I realized, as you'll see when we kind of get to the end of the homework here. I'm so fucking boring. I hope you guys aren't bored. Anyway, so now that you've heard every bodily function I could possibly make, let's rickroll into this bitch. Okay. Turning anger into motivation. I've been thinking about this one ever since we talked and honestly haven't come up with much. Narrator voice. This is foreshadowing and it is misleading and I actually did come up with some shit, so. Seems like when I started doing all this work on myself, the temper really settled down. It turns out when you start liking and loving yourself, you stop being so angry all the time. But at the same time, I've definitely been using some of whatever anger I have left over to motivate myself. It's definitely what made me power through when we first started meeting because I was so mad at April, and now I can't think of a better way to show her what she lost than taking all my anger towards her and using it to better myself, just like she told me I needed to. Like I said in last week's homework, I'm so grateful to her for being the initial inspiration for me starting therapy, but she will never benefit from it. So we'll kind of get a little deeper into this as we get through the homework, but there is more foreshadowing here than I realized when I was writing it. You know what? Do I really want to? No, we'll get to that. But yeah. And I might have. I almost kind of gave up on therapy actually when April and I kind of split up. And because originally I had signed up for it for April because, we've talked about this. I could see how my behavior was kind of affecting our relationship and her mood and her attitude towards me. So I took the leap to kind of better myself so that I could be the best version of myself for her. And after she and I parted ways, I kind of had the thought of like, do I need to keep doing this? Because I was only doing it for April, and April's fucking gone. And frickin' Jilly, better than I thought. It was right around the time before, during, or after April left me. Jilly and I had a conversation where it was like, she kind of reprimanded me. It was because I had said I was doing it for April, and Jilly reprimanded me and said, no, you need to be doing this for you. You can't do it for her. You can't do it for anyone else. It needs to be for you because you've made the choice to come here, regardless of if the initial choice was for April. It needs to be for you. And I kind of stuck with it because I was so adrift and kind of so lost after April left that I didn't really know what else to do. I just kind of wanted to make it through the day. And, really, thank goodness I did, because like, look how fucking far I've come. And I think if anybody who like knows me really well, like the Frenchman or, the Frenchman, a couple of my buddies maybe, like listen to this whole podcast, Drunk to Skunk, they would be shocked to kind of hear some of the revelations and just kind of where I'm at now. Like, it's very interesting, honestly, to see the change. Like, this is episode 19, and like last week I went back and listened to them all up to, would have been 15 or 16 at that point, just because we were proofreading for preparing to send it to April, and now we don't have to worry about that because she doesn't want it. Although, you know what, let's make a bet, podcast. I bet you within 2 weeks April will reach out to me and ask more questions about the podcast, or maybe not, who knows. I am more than happy to be wrong and not hear from her again. Let's see this Mike's noise rejection. I don't think it's as good as the other ones, but but yeah, I am very, very happy. I kind of gutted it out with therapy during the dark days, and I did kind of a whole segment on this early on in the single digit episodes, I think, where I was like, if you are not seeing the results you want from therapy, like, just stick with it, because it's a slow process for some people. Like, initially it was for me at first, because Jilly thought I was deflecting and not wanting to talk about things, and some of it I might have been, but like a lot of it was honestly like, Jilly, I can't remember. Like, we're just gonna have to get there somehow because you boys got memory blackouts and childhood trauma apparently. So and you know what, honestly, sometimes I think about sending this to January, just because out of everyone in my life besides the Frenchman, she knew me the best. So I'd be curious to know like her thoughts about where I'm at now. But like, also, January fucking hates podcasts, so getting her to sit through 20 hours of my stupid voice might be a little too much. And also, honestly, like, what do I care what January fucking thinks of me? So moving right along. Yes, and again, we'll say thank you, April, on the off chance that you do come back and actually do want to hear the podcast. Thank you for getting me into fucking therapy, honestly. It's about the kindest thing you did for me, besides showing me the kind of relationship I deserved. So we will always be grateful. Sorry, we're going to kind of crash bang boom here and see which mic has better noise prevention through the arm. There's a word for it. I don't know what it is, but yes, we will always be grateful to April for being the initial catalyst and eventually motivation to stick with it. So, I debated if I even wanted to include this in the episode, but it would be a real short fucking episode if I cut it out, because it's like a little less than a quarter of what I wrote. So we're going to keep it in because, like I told you guys, it's a journal podcast about all aspects of my life, and this is part of my life. Sorry if you're so sorry. Confession time, Jelly. I may have engaged with April after last week's session, and I wrote her real name in here, so I really should have used April, which everyone in my life has started calling her April, so it's catching on. We don't have to spend too much time on this week because I'm mostly over it. She really helped me along with that. But I went and did a dumb thing and replied to her after our last session, and then may have drunkenly sent her a voice note or two. It all came to a head yesterday in a bit of an argument, but I'm glad it happened because it really showed me how far I've come. I wasn't afraid to back down, and I wasn't afraid to say things I thought would drive her away or make her cut contact. That was one of my many downfalls before therapy, being too compliant when being treated poorly because I didn't want to say or do anything that would cause the person to leave. But we were in the middle of arguing yesterday, and she was showing me a side of her I haven't seen before, and I realized that it wasn't worth it to engage in the argument anymore because nothing good would come of it. So I said what I needed to say, which caused her to shut down and end the conversation, and that was that. The biggest annoyance was that I had more I wanted to say but couldn't. It's funny, I said last week that the closure I was seeking couldn't come from her, and then she ended up giving me exactly what I needed, so life is funny sometimes. We yarned about this a little bit yesterday, and for the most part, we've talked it to death, and I don't need to really rehash a ton of it, but it was just to touch on a few things here. Like, yeah, I am guilty as sin of, letting people kind of treat me like shit and walk all over me and disrespect me because I don't want to make the hard choice to stand up for myself and say something that might cause them to leave or end the friendship or end the relationship. And I was guilty of this with April, and I was guilty of this with January. And honestly, I've been guilty of this with some of these girls that I've been trying to date. Like, I'm a little too tolerant of some behaviors if I really like you. So the fact that April was kind of giving me the gears yesterday, and my first thought wasn't to immediately apologize and back down, but to stand up for myself and say hey man, we talked about it in yesterday's episode. I don't want to rehash the whole thing, but that was a very cool realization, honestly, to kind of realize I am okay if you leave, because are you really, this might be a big boom, this desk, I don't know about it. Are you really someone I want in my life if this is how you're going to treat me and not respect me? And it's hard to explain without really explaining the whole situation, but that's really nobody's business but April's and mine. So beyond the fact that we had an argument, that's really all you guys need to know. And yeah, I kind of just, the way I ended the conversation was I said, you heard one episode that doesn't tell you the whole story, but I don't want to get into this while you're working, especially now that you've kind of moved up and are in a more dangerous position. So I want her to admit that she wants to hear it, basically, because I'm not going to offer it up to her if she's not going to just straight up ask. You're not going to wheedle it out of me, the podcast. So I said, if you really want to know how I feel, all you have to do is ask, and I'll send it to you. And she just kind of shut down, and that was the end of the conversation. So, but like, it's kind of what we said in one of the, I think it was episode 16 or something, like, why do you care? And I did ask her, I was like, do you only care about this because you're being discussed or because you're interested in where my head's at? Like, why do you care? And I didn't get a straight answer, which is fine. She doesn't owe me one, but yeah, I'm not just going to offer this up to her and show her like my innermost thoughts and all this and the after effects of the breakup as much as I'd like to. Like, it's really none of her business. So the same way it's none of my business. Fuck, sorry, that was disgusting. It's none of my business what she's been up to since we broke up. So, like, yeah, if you want it, you have to ask me for it. I'm not going to make this easy for you. You got to use your adult words here. Sorry, kid. So yeah, that's just a kind of a quick recap for Jilly, because Jilly doesn't have the benefit of hearing the podcast every day. And, you know, we talked about it in therapy last week. I was like, you know, Jilly, I thought about asking if you'd listen to the podcast. And then I realized I was basically asking you to do free work for me. And that's really not fair. So, and she kind of just chuckled and said she was too busy for it anyway, which is more than fine. And so, like what I said before stands, like if Jilly ever wanted to hear the podcast, all she's got to do is ask, and I'm happy to send it to her, but I'm not going to send it to her and then she feels obligated to listen to it, and it's fucking 7 extra hours of work she has to do a week just to stay current with my fucking life. Like, no. So, yeah, there's generally a refresh period for Jilly at the beginning of the session. Like, okay, here's what happened on the podcast this week, just to get you caught up. This is what you missed on Glee. Okay, so we move along here. Now that that's out of the way, so we don't have to waste another half session on April, let's move right along. I think I've always used anger as motivation, although my mind has framed it as proving someone wrong. I usually do it at work when someone is dismissive or rude about me or my abilities. Is it a period or a comma? I'll get mad and find another gear just to prove them wrong. I actually had a foreman when I was apprentice who, when we were in a time crunch or things were dire, would intentionally provoke me until I lost my temper and found that rage gear that lets me get after it. It's an interesting state of mind when I get there. It's like all my insecurities and self-doubt are gone, and all that's left is focus. Sorry, there's a grammatical error in there. All that's left is focus and rage. And before you ask, no, I don't know what it would take to reach that state of mind without the anger. Not that I'm not curious, but it's definitely a trait some people take advantage of, because more than a few know that the trick to get me speed working is to piss me off. And that's a true story. I actually, one of my first foremen, and I worked with this guy for a year or two, and then on and off throughout my career, but this was like the first guy I ever really first foreman I worked with when I first started my kind of job. He figured out about pretty late actually in knowing me, but he figured out that if he could get me the right kind of pissed off, I would find another gear, and all of a sudden I would be Speedy Gonzalez at work. And he used that to his advantage. Like, and it used to drive me crazy. The Frenchman, he trained the Frenchman too a little bit. So we would talk about it, and I would be like, I hate that this guy does this, man. Like, but at the same time, like, I'm the one that's being manipulated, and I knew I was being manipulated. So why couldn't I identify it and stop it? So it's as much me as him. But yeah, there's kind of, it's hard to explain, but not if you kind of think the same way I do. Like, there's a real clarity in like rage and being that level of angry that I'm very comfortable in that place, honestly. Like, because that's kind of just how I walked through life for a long time, as I was just mad all the fucking time. From the minute I woke up to the second I went to sleep, I was generally like a 6 or 7 out of 10 furious underneath. Nobody ever saw it. I hid it very well, but it was always kind of there. And this is what I was trying to explain yesterday with the hate fire. Like, it's just always there, just beneath the surface, like simmering rage. And we actually kind of come back around on that in the next little bit here. But yeah, so if you could push my buttons the right way, then all of a sudden, obviously, I'm going to be very productive. And because I'm proving you wrong and I'm blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of how my mind framed it, was like, oh, I'm not getting angry. I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to show you that you're wrong about whatever X, Y, and Z you've said about me. So, and that was also wrong. Shock horror. And yeah, this little bit here, because I know Jilly will come back and be like, what do you think it would take to get there without being mad? And I don't know. And it's a very like clear state of mind where it's kind of like, I'm not insecure. There's no doubts. I can see what has to happen and a way forward and the path to make it happen. And it's, I really kind of wish that I could find the opposite equivalent of getting there with anger, right? Because, it's a pseudo kind of confidence, I think, when I'm in that state where I'm just kind of like, the fury just kind of cuts through everything and I see everything so clearly. So, you know what? I'm sure there is, Jilly and I will maybe dig into it tomorrow. Who knows? Y'all will know tomorrow will be when I do the fucking therapy or the therapy episode, but the battle damage report from therapy. Yeah. And then, a lot of people have figured this out about me over the years, or this foreman told them, or the Frenchman told them, because he's a shit friend sometimes. And yeah, people have definitely tried to take advantage of it. But once I kind of identified it and realized it was happening, like, I'm much better at kind of preventing it if someone's intentionally trying to do it. I've had apprentice. Young Buck used to try and do it to me all the time, which, like, bold move, Cotton. Let's see if it works out for you. But he would tell me, he'd be like, oh, I'm trying to get you mad so we can get some shit done. And I'm like, boy, the only one I'm getting mad at is you and not the way you want me to. Trust me. What do you, Young Buck, are you not remembering the last time you made me mad and the Frenchman literally had to beg me not to try and get you fired? That's a whole nother yarn. Maybe I'll spin that when I get the Frenchman on. Okay. We're back to the homework here, by the way. I hadn't really noticed until yesterday, but I haven't been walking through life simmering like I used to. It was only when I got right spicy that I noticed that it had been absent for a few weeks. Of course, there's been the usual day-to-day frustrations that just come with life, but the old way I live, one rude gust of wind from blowing up on the world around me, that's gone. And I didn't notice it until it returned. I'm genuinely a bit shocked I didn't notice a change in my outlook. So we kind of lost the plot here towards the end because I was distracted, but excuse me. Yeah. It's exactly what I said here. Like, and we kind of got here yesterday. I couldn't really put it into words because all I could think is like, hang on, y'all. I'm going to. Hopefully that didn't translate too poorly. All I could really think was like I'm so ashamed of myself that I backslid and let my temper get the best of me yesterday. And it didn't even, because I was pretty rational in this argument with April and reasonable. Like, normally I would have fucking gone, and the Frenchman has talked about this before. Maybe I'll get him to spin that one of those yarns when he's on. He calls me like the king of scorched earth because I'm just so willing to like just nuke relationships in like the rudest, most hurtful way possible at the slightest hint of being wronged. Or I used to be. I don't really care anymore. To some degree. But yeah. And then like yesterday, like flying off the handle like that and being so angry and this, that, and the other, like I really noticed its absence when it returned. And I was like, oh no. Like I was doing so good. It was like a month and a half. And like obviously there's the ups and downs and the normal bad days and shit where shit happens and you're just kind of cranky and fucky and blah, blah, blah. One of my sub-trades has been pissing me off. I was cussing this guy out all day. But it was normal work shit where I'm like, buddy, this guy is not very good at his job and he's not very professional and he does not work like a professional. So like, obviously I'm going to be a little annoyed about that because I'm the one fighting all this shit and then fighting with him to get him to do his job right. That's normal work shit. But yeah, like that's simmering just below the surface, like a millimeter. That's gone for the most part. I'm pretty easygoing nowadays and kind of chill and go with the flow and koozie, like whatever, man, right? Like, okay, this is totally unrelated. My landlords are expecting and they are doing a home birth. And I'm wondering if today's the day because today is her due date. And I'm hearing things from upstairs. So, we might be live podcasting a home birth here if I don't hurry up and wrap the episode up. I will keep you guys informed about that. Yeah, it was one of those things where and it's like we fucking talked about, one step at a time until you don't recognize how you got to where you are. And that was yesterday and today. It was like, when did this happen? When did I stop living like this? And now am this like not so angry guy. Like, couldn't tell you because it happened so slowly. It happened one step at a time. And the only reason I noticed it happened is because I backslid to the way I used to live and realized it wasn't my norm anymore. So I guess I was right. It is just kind of one step at a fucking time. And that's so funny. Like I said here, I'm genuinely shocked that I didn't notice a change in my outlook. Even though everyone's kind of told me, like Jilly tells me she's told me for the last couple sessions, she tells me there's such a difference in me and I seem more in touch with myself and more calm and more this and that and the other. And I kind of just like, yeah, whatever, Jilly, you're just saying that because you're my therapist, but maybe there's something there. And I just, this is a site super, sorry, Snapchat. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, and I guess Jilly wouldn't lie to me. Fuck's sake. So, the Frenchman said the same thing to me, honestly, and then, Rizlord didn't really know me before. Well, he kind of knew me before, but also, fuck, sorry guys, it's frog back in my throat. Maybe it's the Coke doing it. I don't know, or the rum. Anyway, moving right along. Overall, using anger as motivation for me has always been about proving someone wrong, showing that I can do what they say I can't, that I aren't what they say I am, that I'm better than they think I am. And that may have its place occasionally, but it definitely ties back into finding self-worth in others, and that's a trap I'd very much like to stay out of. Finding worth in myself, finding my self-confidence has just made me assured in my abilities and self in a way that I haven't known before, and it doesn't require all the rage and hate that the old way does. Thank you very much, Jilly. I genuinely didn't notice I changed until I backslid. Oh, for fuck's sake. We're gonna look into a mute button here. There has to be like an XLR adapter with an interrupt in it that I can use for a cough button. So yeah, that is kind of what we were just talking about earlier. But yeah, it's all kind of been about proving someone wrong. And I don't know where this comes from, actually. It's probably something to do with my parents' divorce or something. But anytime anyone kind of like expresses doubt towards me, instantly my back is up and I just want to prove them wrong and show them that they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And of course I can do that. Why the fuck would you say it? Like, you know what I mean? That's kind of how I used to get. And there's been a few instances of this in the last month or two where someone's tried to provoke me or just said something that would have set me off. And I'm just like, shit, man, you're probably right. Why don't we find out? But it's not this like competition where I'm like, fuck you, motherfucker. I'll show you wrong even if it kills me. It's just kind of quiet. It's just this quiet assuredness where I know I'm like, well, you don't know what you're talking about, man. And sorry. Like, sucks to be you for being so wrong, walking around looking like a fucking fool, but, and there's the trap, right? Falling into becoming arrogant. But I guess, yeah, and then shock horror ties back into like finding my self-worth in others and the belief that I have no value or self-worth, blah, blah, blah. Like, fuck, Jilly's a good therapist. Fuck. Look at it all coming together. And I didn't even realize it was happening. Son of a bitch. God damn it, she's worth the fucking money. Fuck. I'm so annoyed. And also, like, pleases punch that she's managed to help me get to this point without me even fucking realizing it. And that's funny too. Like, we did the self-confidence one a couple weeks ago where it was like, and here I am writing now, like, finding my self-confidence has just made me assured in my abilities and self in a way I haven't known before. And that's true. Like, I've never really been, and this might come as a shock to some of you guys, so like fucking hold on to your seats here, but I've never really been like this super confident social fucking butterfly, right? And like, we know this. Obviously we know this. I do it. That's fucking half the podcast is working through that shit, but bonk. Yeah, it's kind of very little bit of full circle here to be able to sit down and write and be like, well, I am assured in my abilities and I am assured in who I am and I am assured that in my confidence levels, like, it's kind of fucking cool that we've come full circle here. And here I am, we lean back now that we're not reading. Yeah, it's very cool to be able to like sit back and be able to say all that and mean it because, well, obviously, that's just kind of self-explanatory, right? Like, when did this fucking happen? It's the coolest fucking thing, like, honestly. So, again, here is your fucking daily, by day, like, fucking every other daily reminder that if you think you need therapy, you probably fucking do. And if you don't think you need therapy, you definitely fucking do. Yeah, and you know what? Writing that kind of brought me out of my funk too, because I was in a bit of a funk today. Because I'm as far as we've come, there's still the occasional backslide, and this shit with April yesterday was one of those. And I've kind of just been focusing and fixating on like I said, all the things I couldn't say to her because they were too mean or and you know what? There was some stuff I wanted to say, but I didn't because I was like, this will either really cause her to blow up or it will instantly end the conversation. So, and I ended up saying one of those things by accident and it did end the conversation. But like, I had a few in the chamber where I was like, I just want to fucking fire this off. But it's, you know what? It's not worth it because like some of them were just intentionally hurtful and just kind of antagonistic, and I just was like, I don't want to be that guy. Like, yeah, the way it ended and the fact that you treated me like that really fucking blows, but that doesn't mean, and this is funny coming off the back of yesterday's episode where I'm pretty sure I recorded myself saying when they go low, I go lower. So, but yeah, I kind of just was like, is there a way to get my point across that this isn't okay without antagonizing you? And I don't think I fully struck the middle balance I was hoping for. Like I said yesterday, I probably could have handled that with a little more grace and aplomb, but you know, nobody's perfect. So yeah, it's really fucking rad, honestly, to be able to kind of look back and see. And I said this in the first fucking episode of the show. I said, you know, it's going to be really cool to get so far in the podcast and then go back to episode 1 and listen to it and see how far we've come. And here we are, episode 19, like 2.5 weeks. And look how fucking far we've come in 2.5 weeks. And yeah, like, you know, still the same kind of problems, but different. Like, April is still a problem just because I have a feeling that she will return. I just have a feeling. And you know what? Maybe I'm wrong and that was the end, and then goodbye, April. But and there will come a day where I will post the link for the podcast publicly and just kind of yard it out there for everyone to see and say, look how fucked up I am, but look how far I've come. And she'll find it that way then. But, so yeah, but at the same time, all this April drama, like, it's not unique to me. This is just kind of breaking up in today's day and age where I started a fucking podcast. This is like not a problem I would have had to deal with in high school and in my 20s and shit, because this just didn't exist. So it's just kind of the sign of the times here, where I was like, you know what? And I was talking to my dad about this on the weekend, because I haven't really talked to him in a week or two. So we were just catching up, and he was asking me what I've been up to. And I was like, well, I started a podcast and I'm going to grow a mustache and started drinking a little bit again. And he was like, why? And I was like, because these were all things that January wouldn't let me do. She hated the mustache. She hated when I drank. Every time I kind of joked about starting a podcast, like, she made fun of me. So it's kind of like my single guy era, where I'm eating grilled cheese for breakfast on a Sunday and kind of trying all these things that I always wanted to do. The drinking is not included in this, because I was also very content not drinking. There was definitely some days where I was like, fuck, would I kill for a fucking gin and ginger or rum and coke right now? But but just silly little stuff like that. And at this point, I don't know that we can call the podcast silly, because I have invested a decent amount of money into this shit now. So but just stuff like that, where I was like, like, this is something that interests me, and it's something, like, who knows if I'd be good at it, but it's something I'd like to try. And I just kind of got ridiculed for it in the most sexist way possible, honestly. So yeah, like, single guy era, I guess. And yeah, I'm like loosely trying to date now. I was telling my dad, like, if I could meet somebody who complimented my life and kind of was what I was looking for, then fuck yeah, that'd be nice. But at the same time, I'm not like obsessively swiping like I was before and even after April. Like, I went to go on Tinder today, and I was like, I don't really care. Fuck, does it really matter? I kind of found what I was looking for, sort of like just some people to text with throughout the day. That was really all I ever wanted. And yeah, then there's days like today where, like, the old friend is working, and May's at school, and Ruth is busy with her kids and stuff. I actually haven't heard from her all day since this morning, so she must have just gotten fucking rip-roaringly busy here today, which I think I knew she would. But yeah, that was really all I was looking for, was just somebody to talk to throughout the day and text with. So, because I really missed that with January being gone and April being, well, April wasn't the greatest texter, which was kind of a source of conflict for us. So, but yeah, so I'm kind of not dating super hard. Like, if it happened, it would happen, and that'd be A-okay with me too. But I don't know. Look at all this personal growth we're going through. Who are we? The Rackham from May 1st of this year would be astonished to hear some of this shit I have to say. Honest to God. What is going on? Am I going deaf in one ear? Test. Sorry, that was probably really loud for you guys. My left can just really stopped working here all of a sudden. But yeah, it's really, really intriguing what can happen when you decide as a 35-year-old man that, hey, it's time to finally do the work on myself that I should have been doing in my 20s. Oh, fuck. Okay. Well, we've kind of hit my magic number anyway, 40 minutes. So, oh, that was foul. Again, sorry, 2 of those in one episode. Fuck me. And you know what? I'm about to... I'll listen back to this as soon as I'm done recording it, and I'm sure there's fucking 50 more I did. Jesus Christ. Right at the end, too. There's probably 50 fucking more I didn't catch, so lucky y'all. Any listener who sticks with me, you're a brave, brave human. Actually, you know what? I see some Instagrams coming in, and That's funny. Oh, okay. I thought she was replying too. Anyway, I had put out a call for, does anyone have any thoughts? I thought I'd give Instagram some love since we were really only using Snapchat just to kind of see about April. You'll know about that. Okay. To all my listeners who do listen, thank you very much. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I don't understand why you keep coming back, because the listener numbers kind of pretty consistently hover around 30, which is not a big number, but it's pretty impressive for my stupid little podcast about working through my trauma and dating life and what a fucking mess both are. So, anybody who kind of listens consistently, like, thank you very much. I don't personally, like, I find myself very interesting, as we've discussed. I am the penultimate fucking narcissist here. I used that word wrong. I know I did. I'm like the ultimate narcissist when it comes to my own podcast because I love listening to it. But to anybody else, like, who doesn't know me, shit, I don't know why you find it so interesting, but I'm glad people are listening. And the usual call out. I'm sure y'all are sick of hearing about it, but I'm going to keep saying it until I start getting some fucking responses. At the bottom of the Spotify episode page, there is a Q&A section. And if I did not send you the podcast in person, or you don't know me in person, but you have listened to it, could you go down there and just throw in like where you found the podcast? My analytics say that about 83% of you come from within Spotify, but not from a recommendation. It just kind of floats up for you through the algorithm. So I'm just curious where people come from and how you find the show. Like, I'm eternally curious how the internet and the algorithms work. So if you wouldn't mind heading down there and filling that out, I would be very grateful. And also, subscribe, follow, however it works on whatever platform you're using. I was kind of looking into maybe getting it on a Google podcast and shit today. Might as well put it out there everywhere. Vast reversal from me being too lazy to do it early on. But, and if you have a second, then, can you rate the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts? Rate it whatever you want. I'm not going to fight you for 5 stars. Whatever you think it's worth, I'll take. And any feedback, throw her in there and I'll fucking hoon it to heart. And I'm pretty sure we have a fucking email now. And I think this is right. It's dumbereveryday42@gmail.com. 42 the numbers. So if you have any thoughts, criticisms, suggestions, like, don't email me and tell me to kill myself. That's rude as fuck. But fire them over there, and I'll link that email up on my phone just so I can be checking it. Yeah. Once we kind of have a more established listenership, I might open up the voice notes feature on Spotify, just because I'm curious to see what some of you mobs sound like, and if this, that, and the other. How many people are going to call me and say, you're ripping off We Mean Well? Like, fuck, buddy, I know. Don't you worry. I think Lou and George would be all right with it. I'm not making a fucking dime off of this shit. So, other than that, if it... oh, hello, little Miss May. Crawling out of the word work. Fuck, she's hard to read. But for the rest of you mob, whatever time it is, day, night, evening, day, night, afternoon, I hope you're having a ripper time, and behave yourself, you absolute gaggle of geese, and I will catch you tomorrow in the Therapy After Action Report. Be good. Hooroo.